So we'll cultivate our motivation. Lama Yeshe used to have these very pithy little sayings. And one of them was, "Good enough, dear." And whenever we came to Lama, saying how deficient we were, how full of afflictions we are, how we don't do anything right, how we're never going to accomplish the Bodhisattva path, Lama would just say, "What you're doing is good enough, dear." He called everybody dear, I think, because he saw everybody as dear. But what good enough, dear, is about is accepting ourselves where we're at right now without wanting to be other than we are in this very moment. That doesn't mean we don't improve in the future. It just means what we are at this moment is what we are, and that's good enough as a result of whatever causes and conditions have preceded it. Of course, in the future, the next moment, is an opportunity to enhance our good qualities, purify the negativities. But it's important to do that on the basis of accepting what we are right now, instead of constantly bashing ourselves on the head for not being something that we aren't. So let's practice that kind of self-acceptance and knowing that we can and will improve in the future. Let's have that attitude towards ourselves and also towards all the other living beings. Instead of putting them in a box and thinking they're forever going to be in one particular way, accept what they are now and know that they can change. We don't know how, we can't govern that. But certainly, if they have the right conditions, they can grow in the Dharma too. And having that attitude towards others makes it much easier to have compassion for them, for the mental traps that they're in now. And it helps us to see their potential. So that makes compassion flow more easily. And with compassion, then we generate bodhicitta. So take a moment and do that. But begin with the self-acceptance, the good enough, dear. Okay. So the first question is, as a monastic, how can you protect yourself from superficial Dharma integration if you live in a community or a Dharma center which is not a strong rock tumbler like the Abbey? What are signs that your practice is superficial? I think whenever you're with sentient beings, there's a rock tumbler. Yeah, it's not that the Abbey has a special rock tumbler, okay, that is, maroon with gold trim and, you know. Uh, no, I think what makes it different than just a workplace or, a Dharma center is that here everybody is here for the same reason and everybody has the same goal. And so you're working together for something. And whenever one of your sharp edges gets jammed against somebody else's sharp edges, then it's, both of you benefit, because both parties will change and grow from it. In a regular situation, you may grow from it, but the other person may remain angry. Or maybe you don't. You say, well, they're not changing. Why should I? And then you keep yourself in samsara. Okay. So it's not hard to find rock tumblers, but you have to have the right attitude towards it. Okay. In terms of when your practice is superficial, I think when we get to the point where we're just kind of saying words but not stopping to think about what we're saying, that then, some dryness has come in, some superficiality. So we need to, you know, make our practice more vibrant. Yeah. Whenever you're in the middle of the rock tumbler and you're upset about one thing or another, your practice is going. Yeah. And you have something to work on, and working on it is your practice. Okay. So don't see the difficulties and problems that come up living with other people as hindrances. They are opportunities to practice, and this is the special feature of the thought training or mind training teachings, that you can transform adversity into the path. So that's quite important. If you haven't had those teachings, then good to request them or check online. We have them on my website. I've taught it a few times, or read one of the books. But the important thing that with the mind training teachings is we've got to really practice them, and not as some intellectual endeavor, but really imagining yourself in that situation and seeing how you can change how you see it and how you respond to it, and that's a way to invigorate your practice. Okay. Who asked this question, was it answered? Was it answered? Okay. Okay. Then the second one is, how do you balance following monastic etiquette with being more natural and relatable to others? So yeah, I've thought about it. It's summertime. Why can't we wear short shemdops? Kind of, yeah. Like the things that the tennis players wear. I mean, it's hot outside, and that's what everybody else is wearing, and why can't we? Why don't we just go to the beach and put on our bikinis with big Vicunis. Now I've gotten confused which is which. Bikinis for Vikshunis. Okay. you know? So, we can do that. And then, then everybody will think what we're doing is, nothing weird, just like everybody else. The only thing that looks weird is we have our head shaved. But, there's a couple of women in Congress with shaved heads. And I think, didn't Lady Gaga do that? Or some important person did. Yeah. Who? Oh, I'm glad you know that person. Yeah, you're more up on it than I am. So, yeah, at least in the US, I mean, there's so many people who look weird. So, you're completely at home if you're wearing robes. It's just especially, well, I'm from Southern California, so, around LA and Venice, and, everybody has some. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, actually. Um, in terms of the etiquette, kind of the one that comes up most is how do you greet people of the opposite sex? Yeah. So, or how do you greet people, your long lost friend, when you find them at the airport? We had a wonderful skit about this with some Colombians. How in Colombia, if you see an old friend at the airport, how you do it. You jump up and down, sing, dance, hug each other, and go around and around. And yeah, they did a whole, yeah, wasn't it? Yeah. And by that, Americans are much calmer, British, or, if you can get them to just go like this a little bit, it's good. But, um, uh, you don't kind of make a scene when you see your relatives at the airport or your long lost friend. You just greet them politely. Be aware that there's other people around you finding the people that they're looking for, so you don't, scream and yell and cause a scene. Um, yeah, you kind of rein it in. It depends on the culture that you're from, yeah, and how you're used to doing things. Um, in terms of shaking hands and things like that, clearly, if somebody is extending their hand to you, you don't be like Melania and slap it. Huh? Yeah, he was trying to hold her hand, and they have it on video, and she went like that. So, yeah, so, if somebody's holding out their hand, you shake it. I was thinking about that, what I was going to tell you, and then, oh, I realized what I do. When I'm in a Buddhist situation, I always go like this. I figure somebody should know this is how you greet monastics. And if they don't, then they will learn because we're in a Buddhist situation. When I go out and I talk to the work people, yeah, if if they extend a hand, I'll shake it. When I see my doctor, I always stand up and shake the hand. That's how I was raised. Um, when somebody introduces me to somebody, yeah, if I just initiate a conversation with somebody, there's no shaking hands. But if somebody says, "Oh, I want you to meet so and so and so and so, meet this one," then I usually extend my hand. Yeah. Um, Situations where men try and hug me, it's interesting. um, where was I? Oh, I was walking down our road about a month ago, and I'm friends with the neighbors at the very bottom. They're Trump supporters. And we're very friendly, and we talk about the animals and the plants and things like that. And I hadn't been down there for a couple of, well, all winter actually. And so when I came, Frank saw me, and I was really surprised that he felt affectionate like this. But, he went like this. He didn't go like this, but he just put his hands out and put them on my shoulder. I didn't scream, you know. I just put my hands on his shoulders or something like that. There was no physical contact, without this part of our body. But, you know, when my dad was alive, I hugged him. That would not go over very well to go and see your parents and say, yeah. Our Theravada friends keep that very, very strictly. Yeah. And I was staying at one home in Australia. The mother was the mother of a monk. And boy, she had restrictions. She couldn't hug her son. She couldn't take him out to breakfast because he can't be seen with a woman in public. It's his mother, for goodness sakes, for who's somebody's sake. Okay. Um, yeah. So kind of being that much, no. She knew what the tradition was like, and she followed that. But the father got to hug the son and take him out to breakfast and so on. So the different schools have different ways of keeping the precepts. Yeah. I know Venerable Wu Yin, Chinese tradition, when she gave her disciples the shamanary ordination, she told, and the parents were invited there, she told the parents that the daughters would come and visit you, but they will not stay in your house. Yeah, that was something very strict. We are not like that. If you go to visit your parents, you can stay in their house. But I recommend short visits to your parents, okay? Or if you have kids, short visits. It works much better. If you go for 2 weeks, you're asking for it, okay? If you have a short visit, the first few days are very amicable. Your parents are happy to see you. You can gossip about all the other relatives and the dogs and the cats and things like that. But after 3 days, at the most 4, it's so easy to fall back into old patterns of behavior, you know? And let's face it, with our parents, we're always their baby. Yeah, we're always their baby. They always will want to protect us. Yeah. When my dad was like 60 years old or some 65, my grandma reminded him to put on a sweater so he didn't catch cold. When I saw that, I thought, well, yeah, that's the way it is. Okay. So, we don't have to react to all those things. We can, our parents, as many of you know, I have the slogan, if you give your parents time, they will grow up and they will, see how to relate to you as an adult and as a monastic. Mhm. Um, when I was keeping the initial years of my ordination, I kept the precept to not eat in afternoon quite strictly. That was a bit awkward, because the family wanted to be with me, and so I would go and sit at the table with them, but I wouldn't eat anything. So that, what can I say? uh, yeah. So, I mean, that's something you can choose what to do. What else in terms of etiquette? Can you think of specific things you want to know about? Um, oh, yeah, just it, it depends where you're traveling. And, if you're traveling to teach, they invite you to different places. You don't know what what it's going to be like, and if the people at that center know how to interact with monastics. And I was in Eastern Europe. This was in '94, and uh, in Romania, I was staying at a couple's house, you know, and so I always make sure that there's another woman there. Um, but yeah, I was staying at the couple's house, and I had my own room, which was good. But after the teachings, all the couples went back to their house. And when I had to go into the kitchen from my room, into the kitchen through the living room where they were. I really didn't want to see all of that. But they had no idea of, kind of, yeah, they were making out, all these different couples making out. And it's like, I just want to get some water. um, but they don't know. They don't know. When I was um, in Belarus, yeah, was it Belarus? I think so. So, yes, it was Belarus. And uh, so they put me up. I guess the person who had the nicest accommodation was one man who lived in a flat alone. Now, they just had my itinerary. They picked me up at the airport and everything, and we had dinner together, fine. And then they sent me home with this man, and I assumed that, he was married or something like that. We got to his place, and being a gentleman, uh, he started to unzip my jacket and help me off with it. And it was like, I can unzip my own jacket. Thank you very much. I had to, gracefully, like, thank you, I'll do. Then I went into his bathroom, and there's a huge thing of some Playboy bunny, in the bathroom. It's like they don't know, they don't think. Yeah. So uh, um, after that, now, when we travel, then if it's a place where I haven't been before, we send things, just a little bit about the accommodation has to be in a place where there's definitely a woman who's sleeping, and whoever picks me up should, uh, if there's no other ride, okay, with a man, but it's best if, there's a woman in the car. And this is what I eat. But sometimes people, the information that's sent to them about what I eat is not what I eat. Yeah, communication problems. Uh, yeah, so you really don't know. I mean, maybe it's getting better now. The Buddhist centers know a little bit more about etiquette, but sometimes, it's just you got to deal with it. And some people, it's like look at you like you're almost sitting next to His Holiness, and can I get you this? Can I do this? Please go here. Uh, and then other people, it's like, here, can you carry my bag? Um, yeah. So you just have to roll with it and be friendly, and um, sometimes give people hints, or it's about how to do things correctly, or sometimes you have to tell them directly. Last time when we were in Singapore, I was teaching at a center, and the people invited me in. They had done their puja. They invited me in to give the talk. I sat down, and then the guy started making announcements. You do not make announcements after you've invited to come a teacher to come and teach the Dharma. Yeah, when you invite somebody to teach, that's what everybody's there for. You teach. After they leave, and they're not in the room, then you make the announcements. But so this guy was going on and on, their whole schedule, it seemed like, for the rest of the year. You were there, and I'm sitting there, and finally, I said something. Did I wait until he ended, or I stopped him in the middle, you know? What? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that communicates well. Yeah. No, some people definitely treat nuns very different than they treat monks, and it's something that you should try and teach them. And it's very helpful if the monks do that too. Yeah, because if the nuns are just kind of saying things like that, then people say, oh, well, she's arrogant. You're just trying to be equal and you wind up being arrogant. So it's good if the monks are around, or if they can say things to people about that. Yeah.
No, they remembered the teaching. They went through the whole program with me ahead of time also, and then with Venerable Control.
Yeah. Yeah. So the basic thing is, to not be offended by how people treat you, but, just to realize some people don't know. And to not also feel uncomfortable. Well, sometimes if they make a real big deal out of you, and then you have to say, I'm just a simple person, relax, and it's very different in different places. When I'm often invited to teach in Theravada places, and they have a very different way of offering food. In our tradition, somebody offers food, you eat together. Yeah. In Theravada, the lay people all bring food in smaller dishes. They put all their dishes on the table. So you might have like 30 dishes, or depends how many people, 50 dishes, whatever, spread out. And everybody wants you to take some of their food, because that way they earn merit by your accepting their offering. And there's the dish with pickles. Yeah, which I just, guide around. And, I feel so uncomfortable because they're watching me take something from everybody, sit down. They will not eat with you. Yeah, sometimes they go in another room and chat until you're done. Sometimes they just sit on the ground there while you're sitting at a table eating, and they're sitting on the ground, and you wonder, you kind of feel like that photograph of the starving child with a vulture next to them. Are they just waiting for me to eat, to finish so that they can, eat the rest? I always feel very uncomfortable. And in some situations, I said, let's just eat together, both the tables together, we'll all eat together. But one place in Penang, no, it was in KL, where we were at. Do you remember? It was a place called Nalanda. Yeah. And so they served the meal like that. They would not do it any other way. They said, this is our tradition. This is how we're serving the meal. And so, we had to sit there and take from everything and watch them watch us eat. So yeah, so there's a difference in etiquette in the different traditions. Some of that has to do with how strictly you keep different precepts. Some of it has to do just with the culture and how they do it. Theravada countries, yeah, they have my cheese who are 5 preceptors. They wear white. So they have a few bhikshunis now in Thailand, for example, and a few more in Sri Lanka, but it's not widely accepted, yeah. And the monks, it's interesting because there's certain things that they do that are beyond what the precepts say. So, for example, you're not supposed to touch other people of the opposite gender. Yeah, of course, you're sitting on a bus next to somebody. You don't go, excuse me, I got to put a wall between you and me, Yeah. But what was I? Yeah. I was building that wall. Uh, about what? Yeah. The tiger. Can you speak American? Can somebody translate that into American? A Tali guard? Tali? Sounds like Taliban. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So the Thai monks, the Thai monks, as a woman, you cannot hand them something directly because, God forbid, your hand just accidentally brushes against them for that long. Yeah. So what they did, at least in the Thai forest, is they have this tradition, and it's not according to Vinaya, it's according to what the Cambodian kings used to do. The Cambodian kings, when somebody was giving them something, they would put out a cloth. The other person would put the object on the cloth, and then the king would pull it. So that's how you hand a Theravada monk something, at least in the Thai forest tradition. In Singapore, they're much more, I would hand Bunty, we would always bring some gifts. I would hand them directly to him. It was fine. He didn't make a big deal about it. But you have to be sensitive because different groups, even in one tradition, are different.
I got caught one day when I was traveling with Chonghua, and Venerable Guogong and Cheng Zi were in the other car. And Chonghua sort of, she spoke so highly of Venerable Guogong. We'd all just been traveling all day and 4-hour drive to Sravasti. And so anyway, we stop at a hotel and we all get out because we think it's Sravasti. And Chonghua said, "Oh, this is Master Guogong." Now see, in my country, you give people the nod. And
you give people the what?
The nod. And unless
nod.
she put her hand out, then I would greet her. Otherwise, you look at each other and you give each other the nod. That's what we do.
Okay.
And Paul, when I look back on it, like Chonghua was just not impressed with me at all. And no, but Master Guogong, she just gave me the nod back. So from my side, it's all good. But yeah, so when you're meeting somebody like that,
you put your hands together.
Yeah, I should have done that.
Yeah.
I must remember.
Yeah. One thing you don't do, which I did when we were arriving at Fengmingsi several years ago, not the recent one, but several years ago, when we went into the office, and the senior nuns were there, and in the middle of the office, I started bowing to them, and they immediately stopped me, because that wasn't the right. You always bow to the seniors when you first see them, but that wasn't the right place to do it. Okay, so you wait until it's a better situation. Mm-hmm.
One thing that happened that made me very confused and I wanted to crawl under the carpet was when seniors came and offered us some red packets. And like I had some senior bhikshunis and senior people in front of me kneeling down and offering me stuff. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the Madame Show kind of, well, not screamed at me, but kind of, get on the floor!
Yeah.
And all that. I would like to know, like, in the Chinese tradition now, I have an idea how to react to that, but like if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sometimes because in the Tibetan community, we're not usually treated like that, yeah. So when you go to like the Chinese communities or Vietnamese, very often total strangers will come to you and offer you a red packet, and sometimes they'll kneel down. And if they're offering you, say, you accept it, and remember, or if they're bowing to you, in front of you, remember they're not bowing to you. Yeah, they're bowing to the robes. They're bowing to the ordination. You can visualize the Buddha at your heart and think that they're bowing to the Buddha at your heart or the Buddha on top of your head. It has nothing to do with your personality or anything. It has nothing to do with you. Yeah, it's people showing respect to the Sangha, and they create merit by doing that. And so instead of getting all involved with, oh, I don't feel comfortable, rejoice in the merit they create. And then it makes us think, oh, maybe I should do that too when I see seniors and go and bow and make an offering.
Why I asked Venerable Kunchok to bow was because anytime someone senior to you bows to you, what I've seen Chinese monastics do is immediately you bow back at the same time.
Yes.
Because you don't want to remain standing. And then they said at
Oh, I thought it was a layperson bowing to you. Then you bow back at the same time.
Yeah, or if they're kneeling, you get on the floor at the same level as them.
Them, yeah.
This is why I felt so uncomfortable. I was very surprised. I wasn't expecting that to happen. They were lining up and they started bawing in front of me, and I was like, what should I do?
Yeah. Well, part of the thing is they assume that you're a bhikshu. And so they would bow, to bhikshus. And then, so you have to say, I'm a shramaneri. I should be bowing to you, you're senior. Yeah, and I would say that to them.
What was interesting too when we were at Puyi Nunnery, and then the monk translator, Venerable Shingon, arrived, and they did the formal welcome, and so he bowed to the Buddha. Then after that, the abbess says, "I will bow to welcome you," and he bowed at the same time as the abbess, and they were very touched by that.
Yeah.
They kind of reported it back to all the nuns, like,
yeah.
"This is a good monk."
Yeah.
I also encountered, even though that I was from the Chinese tradition, but I also encountered that some monastics don't like people to bow, and they would just say that bow to the Buddha, or even like only half bow. Yeah, not full bow.
Yeah.
So it's all depending on location,
on the
geography.
person. Yeah, the situation, the location. Also, if they're junior in ordination, or they don't have, they have shramaneri precepts, and that would definitely be appropriate.
And on the person also, because a most venerable in Hong Kong, the monastery I was staying for 2 years. He a very respected monk, but he only when New Year, the Lunar New Year, you pay respect to the senior. He just said pay respect to the Buddha. So it depends on the monk.
Yeah. And so you can also do that too. If you're in a temple and somebody starts to bow to you, you could just say, bow to the Buddha. Yeah. But you also have to get used to it, and really realize it has nothing at all to do with you or your feeling of I. Oh, they're bowing to me. Yeah, who? This body? Yeah, my liver, my intestines. Who are they bowing to? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the guidelines have to do with how people hold Vinaya and also with the culture. Yeah. Another thing with the Theravada, it isn't required in the Vinaya, but they also shave their eyebrows. And when I asked about that, why you do that, they said that there were, I guess, some incarnations of the 6 naughty monks in Thailand. And apparently they were making eyebrows at women. I don't know. How do you do that, guys? Yeah, somehow. And so somebody criticized them, and so that then they have the procedure now that you also shave your eyebrows. And the women do too. Yeah. So, yeah, it's, it's like if you've traveled in the world, then you know that, things differ from place to place, and you have to really tune in and, where is it appropriate to do something and where is it not appropriate? Okay. I'm trying to think of some examples. In some places, in some Buddhist communities, as a nun, I can walk around alone. In Singapore, I can walk on the streets alone. That's fine. It's no problem. Yeah. In some countries where they hold the Vinaya really strictly, I wouldn't walk alone. Yeah. When I went to Thailand to do that research for the First Holiness, there was one of the students from the Seattle center that I knew. He was in Bangkok, so he offered to pick me up at the airport and then take me to the temple where I was at, So I had to just negotiate. We're on the bus and he's in one seat and I'm in another seat, You just wouldn't sit next to a man on a bus in Thailand if you're in robes. Yeah. In India, no. Well, on a bus, sometimes you don't have a choice because you have an assigned number ticket, But if it's just a place where you can, sit anywhere, it depends. If the seats are right next to each other and crowded, I wouldn't do it. Yeah. If if there were big seats and there was some space between them, I would. Depends a lot. What was
The trust a teacher versus like the trust that we bring along from, like we trust our partners and then we bring it along to the monastery, and I kind of like not understanding what's the meaning of the trust.
Trust, okay. Well, first of all, it's very important to check out various people before deciding they're one of your teachers. Okay, so we're the ones who decide who our teachers are. And you can go and listen to people teach and get a sense of them and how they are. and then decide if they will be one of your teachers. In the Tibetan tradition, it's fine to have several teachers, although you usually have one or two who are the basic ones who guide you. But it's our responsibility to check the qualities before deciding somebody is one of our teachers. Yeah. So what do you look for? Well, it's in the Lam Rem, yeah. But, and specifically, if you look in volume 2, the foundation of Buddhist practice, there's a whole chapter on relating to the spiritual mentor, and it goes through there. But basically, somebody who keeps good ethical conduct. Yeah. If you have heard of teachers who have been involved in scandals, I would stay clear. Yeah. Just because, well, if think a little bit. Yeah, why it would be wise to stay clear if it's a teacher who's been involved in scandals. So somebody who has good ethical conduct, somebody who knows the teachings well, and not just one teaching, but they can teach several topics. They can explain things well. Somebody, who can explain teachings to you because they understand the teachings and also because they know how to explain them. And definitely you want to see what a teacher's motivation is. If it's somebody who is clearly going around because they want to become famous, and they want to have a lot of groupies after them, then, just take that into consideration. Yeah. Some teachers, most teachers are fairly humble, but sometimes you run across people who are teaching, and you get the feeling that they really want to be an important person, an important lama or whatever. So just take that into consideration. Similarly, if it seems to be somebody who's very interested in going shopping, whenever you want to go shopping, they want to come along and have you pay for things, or somebody who's constantly asking for donations for this or that, take that into consideration. There was some people in Singapore who, there was one monk from, he was a Tibetan monk, who was telling them he was raising money for his monastery in Tibet. And people were giving donations, and he promised he would bring pictures the next year to show them of the monastery. Well, the next year he forgot the pictures. And the next year he forgot the pictures. And then it wound up he wasn't raising money for his monastery at all. If there's somebody who's asking you for money for their family, that also happens. Monastics trying to get money for their families. You take that into consideration. If it's someone who's like a super powerful teacher who's knocking you over the head with the teachings that go right in your heart, okay. But otherwise, personally speaking, I really look at their scholarship, look at, how well they keep the precepts. How do they act towards others? Do they act kindly with compassion, or are they strutting around like they're somebody important? And what are they encouraging their students to do? Yeah.
How do we know if they're keeping their precepts?
Well, you know what some of the precepts are. So you look, is this somebody who's going up and hugging everybody? Yeah. Is this somebody, like I told you the story of the one who was drunk on the street, is it somebody who's saying, yeah, let's go to the pub after the teachings, or, let's go eat hamburgers at McDonald's at 11 o'clock at night? If you're a woman and it's a monk and he's asking you to come to his room in the evening, why is he asking you to go there? Did you initiate something? Did you want to ask Dharma questions? Well, you don't go to his room at night to do that. If he's just out of the blue inviting you, no, thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, I think especially with the women, they have to be quite careful, because some of the people who are wearing robes, you're not sure how they're ordained or not, or what's going on. Yeah. So the basic thing is, don't do something because you're flattered. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you a few horror stories, and these are extremes, but it's good to know the extremes. Okay. One friend of mine, it was a man, and he was what was he? Some kind of scientist, educated person, scientist. Anyway, he was going to some spiritual group. It wasn't, I don't think it was Buddhist. It might have been Hinduism, or maybe half Hindu, half Buddhist, something like that. And the teacher said to him, oh, I'm so, after he was coming for a while, oh, you're one of my favorite students. You're one of the best students here. And, he was making donations, but, and like, yeah, you're just so helpful, and you're really earnest in the dark, flattering him. And he thought that was wonderful, and until he found out that this charlatananda was sexually abusing his 2 teenage daughters. Yeah. So, don't, if somebody's paying special attention to you, you don't need special attention. You need teachings. Yeah. One woman, there was one monk who's quite a well-known monk and usually well-respected in Bodha. He asked her to come to his room in the evening, and she didn't feel comfortable about it, and she said no. And then she came to me later and she said, this is what happened. And I said, no, did I do the wrong thing? Because you're always supposed to please your teacher. And he was a lama and a rinpoche, and he wanted to talk to me, and, should I have gone? I said, no, you did the right thing. Yeah, because there was no reason for her to go alone to his room in the evening. Yeah. So I'm telling you horror stories, some of them. I've been around for a number of years. I've heard a number of things. So, mm-hmm.
Thank you. There's one temple by me where supposedly one of the teachers, who's now deceased, was involved in some sexual scandals with the students, and the other teachers and monks there supposedly knew of this, but they kind of just stood by, and I've avoided going there. How do I approach this? I've had interest in going there, but that sort of deterred me. Am I right in that deterring me, or is that sort of just custom.
Personally speaking, that would deter me. Yeah. What group was it?
I don't like lineage or it was like a Tibetan Kagyu temple.
Tibetan Kagyu. Okay. I don't know because some of the places that are controversial, I know, and if people say to me, should I go there? I say, you can make your own decision, but do your research because it's a place that's controversial.
Yeah, I don't think the lineage itself is controversial. I think it was just isolated to that one teacher. But I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes if the teacher is controversial, the disciples are as well. Yeah. Just because that's the culture of the place. So, but I can't speak to the specific place you're talking about because I don't know what that is. Okay. Yeah, so trust. So you check out somebody's qualities before you accept them as one of your teachers. Then when they're one of your teachers, because you've checked out the qualities, you should be able to trust them, that they're working for your benefit, that they care about you, and not just about, now, but care about your progress on the path. Okay. And they want to teach, they're not kind of being stingy about the teachings. And so, there's certain trust like that. And then, you usually trust their advice. If you don't want advice, do not ask for it. Yeah, I've had people ask me for advice. I tell them. And then, some people just say yes, but after they've already asked me for the advice and come up with an excuse why they can't do it. Some people say, what this other Lama told me to do this and that, and you're telling me the opposite. Which do I do? Figure that out yourself. What else have I run across? And then people, they made a mistake and you have to speak directly to them and in a strong way. Most of the Tibetan lamas do not do this because Westerners tend to be very ego-sensitive, very easily offended, and if, the lama, kind of says something that the person doesn't like, they cry, they, do who knows what. So Tibetan teachers often will not give you that direct feedback in the situation. However, in some situations, I will. Okay. So when I do that, or if you have another teacher who does that, yeah, and it's like, wait, I didn't ask for that advice. Why are you telling me I just did something, discourteous and made a fool out of myself? And, why are you telling me? Why are you correcting me? You could see that look in their face. That's where I think trust comes in, that, this person said something I don't want to hear. Maybe it was advice I didn't ask for, but I was doing something at that moment that was not appropriate, and they called me on it. And depending on the relationship that you have with somebody, I think it's actually, if your teacher can call you on something in public, I think it's actually a compliment. It means that they trust you, that you can handle it. If your teacher, tiptoes around you in public, because they're afraid you're gonna yell and scream or burst out crying or, stomp out of the room or throw Buddha Bear across the room, something like that, then it means that's how you're coming across as somebody who's childish, to put it bluntly. So yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, because he's one of the people that I have to sit down and we have a talk with. Yeah. Isn't it? It's true. Yeah. Yeah. But he hangs in there. Yeah, he hangs in there. He hasn't run down the hill yet. I can try harder.
One of the best advice I was given, and it's good whether you're looking for a place where you want to ordain or train, or just you're looking for a new place and you don't know that teacher very well, is to look at the disciples. And I thought that was very wise.
Yes.
And this is something I did here. I looked at the people in the community and then learned to know more about you. And
Yeah, that's very important. Look at the disciples. And, so you get a sense of the culture in the place. Because you will become like those disciples. And if the disciples are bickering all the time, look forward to that. It doesn't mean you have to engage in it, but if you very easily get drawn into that, then, it could push your button and then you go into your old habit of, quarreling or whatever it is. Yeah, this whole thing about asking for advice, because you will get different advice from different teachers. Yeah. And sometimes, I'll give you some examples from both sides, from the teacher's side and from the student's side. From the student's side, when I was, Lama Yeshe had us all do Vajrasattva retreat this summer after we did the Lamrim course. So I was all set with a bunch of people. We were about to start the Vajrasattva retreat and up at Tushita. And I had been studying at the library down the hill with Geshe Nawandarge. And so I went to Geshe-la to let him know that I wouldn't be in class for the next 3 months because I was doing Vajrasattva retreat. And Geshe Nawandarge, and he said, "Why are you going to do retreat? You need to study. If you don't study, what are you going to meditate on? Yeah, so you should stay here and study." And, and he knew Lama. They were from the same monastery, and, other groups had done Vajrasattva retreats. So I think he understood that. So I had started walking back up to Tushita because the retreat is starting, and my mind is going, what do I do now? Lama wants us to do this. Geshe-la told me that. And it was actually quite good because it made me think more. Yeah. Do I really want to do this retreat? Why should I do the retreat? Yeah. What am I expecting? Is this my fantasy of, doing retreat and having realizations? Or am I doing the retreat just because Lama has everybody do it? It was actually good because it made me look closer at the retreat and my motivation for doing it. And when I got up to Shita, Lama was in the garden. And we started talking, and I, kind of mentioned that Geshe Nawandarge had encouraged me to stay there and study. And he said, study is very good, and after the retreat, you can go down there and study. Yeah? During the retreat, you can meditate on what he has taught you already. Yeah. So in the end, it was okay. But having that period of confusion was good for helping me get my mind clear and know that, which teacher was the prominent one whose advice I'm going to rely on. Yeah. Then from the side of the teacher, the classic case is one lady in Malaysia came to talk to me one day, and I was just visiting the center, and as a guest teacher, and I didn't know anybody very well. And she said to me, "I've been dating this man for however long it was. Should I marry him?" How in the world am I supposed to know? Come on. Yeah. How am I supposed to know if you should marry somebody or not? I don't know you. I don't know him. It's your personal business. I have a precept against being a matchmaker. And then she continued, and she said, "I want to know because I asked Lama ABC, and he said I should marry him. And then a few months later, Lama XYZ came, and he said I shouldn't marry him. And so, I want to know what you think." Don't ask that kind of question to somebody, and especially if you've asked several lamas beforehand, and they've been enough to give you advice on that. I just said, "Do you want to marry him?" That's your decision to make. I have no idea. Okay. Yeah. And then, there was one person who wanted to ordain, and I could see he had some things that he needed to work out in his life before ordaining. And I told him, "Do this, get this issue worked out, and then, then you can think of ordaining." He didn't like my answer. So he went to another Lama, and he went to another one, and he went to another one. I think he even asked His Holiness at one point, and another one. And then finally, he was in one monastery and asked the Lama there, and he said, "Yeah, I'm giving ordination next week. Get your robes ready." And he ordained. Yeah, and then after that, he asked me questions about how he should practice and where he should live. But, if I gave you advice about one thing, a serious thing, and you didn't want to hear that, and you did the opposite, then it doesn't make much sense to me personally to give you any more advice about something serious, because you don't really want to hear it. You don't value it. Yeah, it does. Whether passing that to you, it doesn't mean that your teacher is a dictator and your teacher says, "Do this." You can talk and discuss it if they give you advice that you feel you can't do, or it doesn't fit, or they don't have all the information. You can discuss it. That's fine. But, when you ask and hear and this, and then you jump from one teacher to the other until one of them tells you what you want to hear. Yeah, that's not the way to follow the advice of a teacher, So, like I said, it doesn't mean they're a dictator. You can just, discuss with them. But it also means that you don't just run around and ask every Lama you meet what to do. Yeah, you usually pick one or two people who you're quite close to and have that kind of relationship with, and then check with them, and then usually you follow that advice. And like I said, if you don't want advice, you don't ask for it. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, if you see a teacher as someone who you do trust, and you do see them as a teacher. I mean, how do you know if that's reciprocated by the teacher, or do you need to know if it's reciprocated by the teacher? That they're happy to have you as a student.
I think most teachers, if they have the Bodhisattva vow, they will teach you. Yeah? They won't say, go away. Yeah? Yeah.
You see them as one of your teachers, though?
No, even if it's, well, definitely if they're one of my teachers, I already know they're going to teach me. If it's a teacher that I've never met before, I go to the teachings, and then, I already have my main teachers, so I'm not looking for a main teacher. But if what they're teaching is wonderful and I enjoy the teachings and so on, in my heart, I take them as one of my teachers. I don't go to them and kneel down and offer a ring and say, will you be my teacher? Yeah, but I just keep showing up. And if you keep showing up, then I think the teachers usually get the idea. Yeah. Of course, if there's thousands of people or hundreds of people in the room, they may not recognize you as an individual, so don't always expect that. I mean, the basic thing is use your wisdom, dear, which was another one of Lama's sayings. Yeah, use your wisdom, dear. Think. Yeah.
To prepare for monastic life, would it be good to not hold, but follow the monastic precepts even as a lay person?
What would be the disadvantages of that?
That answers it.
Don't put on robes if you're not ordained. So that precept don't keep. But the other ones, yes, it's very good to keep them even if you're not ordained. Yeah.
It's okay to study them?
Each tradition has a different philosophy about that. Technically, you're not supposed to. And there's different reasons for it. One is some people are afraid if you study it, then you'll say, oh, it's too hard and you won't ordain. Or some people say, if you study it, then you start criticizing the Sangha for not keeping the precepts. Yeah, so neither of those is good. But in Thailand, the lay people know the major precepts, and that's what helps the monks act well, is because the lay people know what the precepts are. Yeah. In the Tibetan tradition, I think, yeah, it's good if you, the books with the listing of the precepts are kind of in public. They're in libraries. Academics know them. It's good to ask your teacher what they think. Yeah, and then follow what they say. I know for myself, well, I wanted to ordain, and at that time, Geshe Nawandarge at the library, he was. Some of the nuns had asked him to give teachings on the Shramaneri precepts, and he had accepted. And when I heard about that, I thought, oh, I want to ordain. I want to hear those teachings. So I went and I asked him, I said, I want to ordain. I would really like to hear these teachings. And he allowed me to hear them. Yeah. Venerable Wu Yen, when we had a program in '96 in Bodh Gaya, she allowed people who weren't bhikshunis to hear the precepts. When she taught here, also Venerable Losang came, and there were a couple of lay people who she gave permission for them to hear the precepts too. So, you ask the teacher if they're giving a teaching on precepts. Yeah. Yeah. The main thing is, it's good if you do in that kind of situation, because then you could hear them explained. Sometimes if you just pick up a book and read it, you don't know who the teacher is and what slant they're having, or you may be reading a scholar's commentary. They studied the Vinaya, but they're a university professor, and they've written, what they think the text said. And then you get really, really confused, because that's not what you're seeing in actual practice. Yeah. Or you read things, what the scholars research, and it sounds a bit strange, what they're doing in that tradition. And it's, I usually advise, not put it, no, I shouldn't give advice. I should just tell you what I do. I am very careful when I read scholarly papers. Yeah, because I know that some of the people who write them are not Buddhist. And in the universities, you are taught to be critical of whatever you're studying. I had one Buddhist friend who wanted to get his PhD in Buddhist studies, but he didn't, because the department wanted him to criticize the Dharma. You're supposed to, with a critical mind, this one says this, and that doesn't make sense, and this kind of stuff. So he wound up doing something associated to the Dharma, but it had to do with the texts and so on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because people write from all sorts of different viewpoints. And after, you really have to think. Yeah. One of the men I write to in prison, he just finished a chaplaincy course. And one of the courses, they're sending him out to another prison to teach. One of the courses he's teaching is called Think for a Change, or Thinking for a Change. Yeah? So that was for inmates. I think it's good for people who are out on the streets too. Yeah, think. And if before you read something, figure out, who's writing it, what perspective they say. After one of the big scandals that happened some years back, it was just a big hoopla. And, about this one teacher who was very prominent, and he was a layman, but in big centers and wealth and a lot of girlfriends. And he didn't always treat them very well, and blah, blah, blah. So there was a big, big scandal. And what people were getting very confused about was he was a tantric master. And, when you take empowerments with somebody, highest class tantra empowerment, you're taught about samaya, and they have to keep your samaya clear with the Lama, which means following your precepts, following, the ethical codes, the tantric ethical code, and so on. And, you know, one of the big things that you hear is, you know, the guru is the Buddha, and you should always do whatever the guru asks you to do, you should do. Yeah, because it's the Buddha asking you to do that. Okay, so, you know, a lot of young women, you know, he was propositioning to them and they accepted, and it was well known in the whole organization. You know, so women have to be very careful and don't let your ego get in the middle of it, because what happens is, oh, this is a high lama and he wants to be with me and I'm special. And he told me I get a special blessing if I sleep with him, and I'm keeping my samaya. Ooh, and none of the other girls have that. Come on, you know, think. Yeah, think. So, yeah, so my point in this was, after this big hoopla, yeah, then one other lama was writing some advice on it. And I was, he's a lama who, I don't know him very well. He's not one of my teachers, but I've attended one teaching and I've read some of his stuff. And he says things that are quite pointed. And I think he, some of the things he says that are pointed, I really agree with. And, but in this particular case, he was saying, you know, oh yes, you know, if your teacher asks for sex, you should give sex. And I was wondering, you know, did he, you know, first of all, it's like, no. Yeah. But later when I thought about it, I thought, I wonder if he's saying that because he's just, he's challenging people to think. Yeah. That may be why. I don't know. But when I read that, definitely it affected my respect in him. So, yeah. I mean, you're here. I'm not talking about all the wonderful lamas that are keeping pure ethical conduct, that give wonderful teachings. You know, the majority are like that. I'm telling you just about some of the things that have gone wrong, just so that you know. But, you know, the majority of teachers are very good. But you still have to check them out, because somebody may be the perfect teacher for someone else because they have that karma with that person, but they may not be the perfect teacher for you. And you may, you know, attend their teacher and it's like, you know, it doesn't do anything for me. So, you know, it's a very personal thing. Yeah. But I don't recommend that people see, you know, because so often things are exaggerated, you know. This lama is the highest of the high of the higher of the highest, you know, and His Holiness talks about some of those lamas. Oh, there was one lama named Dorji Chong, yeah, that, you know, he's the second Dorji Chong, you know, that's the translation of Vajradhara, you know, from Tantra, you know, and then okay. And then there was one Lama in California, this was some time back, I don't know what happened to him, who was Maitreya Buddha. Yeah, okay. You know, I don't look for titles. His Holiness says, don't look for titles. Don't look for the amount of brocade or how high the seat is. look at, is this somebody who studies and practices well? Don't go for the external things. And he even says that some people in the Tibetan community are nobody, but they go to the West. I mean, they're just like an average monk in Tibet. Nobody notices them. They go to the West, and all of a sudden they become, His Eminence, the royal, exceptional, Tulku, Kenpo, Geshe, venerable, prestigious, XYZ, Rinpoche, Kenzer, so he says, no, you don't need that. You need teachers that know the teachings and can teach you well. Yeah. So don't be a sucker for titles and stuff like this. Yeah. Venerable Jendi told me this story. I'm telling you all the bad stories. Not all of them, some of them. I have a whole stock of bad stories. About her temple, most of the followers from the Chinese tradition, and there was one monk who came, on Lama or something. Anyway, they started asking this one lady, who had some money, they need a donation for this, they need that, they need the other thing. And she just kept giving donations, because it's a Lama and he's, I think this was might have been one of the ones with many titles that he gave himself. Not that he were warranted, but that he gave himself. And it got to the point where the lady couldn't afford it anymore because he kept on asking for things for himself, for his family, and this and that. Yeah. So that's not our job. His Holiness was very clear about that too. The student's job isn't to support the monastic's lay family. Okay, are you all sufficiently disillusioned? Only sufficiently, not too much. Okay. So, disillusioned enough to be smart, but without being cynical, without being suspicious, but being careful. And for that lovely teaching I gave you, your $100 bills can go there. Okay, actually, I need one of the Theravada bowls for my offerings. This is like so small. Yeah, the Theravada one's like the big one down there. Yeah. Okay, we've gone over time again. Let's dedicate. I hope I instilled some merit in you through all that talking.